Hi, this is Dr. Kristen Scatliff of MD Fem Incorporated. I have the pleasure of introducing a new niche to our brand. It's going to be called MD Fam, Doc Moms. And the members of our collective who have been blessed with motherhood are giving their interesting and unique perspectives to add to the conversation of health equity. In these episodes, we're going to be discussing with Dr. Candace Wall-Bennett, Dr. Lubna Chowdhury, and Dr. Safiyya Quintiliani about the struggles or the issues or the frequently asked questions that parents have. They each have children at different ages. They each have their own unique experiences. So it's going to be a great discussion. We also are going to have on certain episodes expertise advice from different people that we have admired from afar or from close. So we hope that you enjoy it. Our first episode tonight is going to be about parenting styles and the different various styles that are implemented by individuals to raise their children, to raise independent, functioning members of society. And we understand that even with your best efforts, parenting is a constant learning process. And so all this information is information. We ask that you use your good judgment and apply it in your life how you see fit. And always, of course, talk to your primary care doctor before you implement anything that you hear on MD Fem. Thanks for joining us.
All right, welcome guys to another MD Fem session. Today we have the moms on the line and we just wanted to talk about different parenting styles. So first, we'll just go through with each person and you just briefly tell us where you from, what's your name, how many children, just a brief description of how your family setup is.
Okay, I'll go first. Sure. Hey guys, Lubna Chaudhry, and I have two boys. One is about to turn 4 in a few days, and one is 6 years old. We have a mom and a dad in the house, and that's it. Oh, and I'm family medicine. And I think anything else, Candace?
Where are you from?
Oh, originally from Chicago. But we are now transplants to Houston.
All right, Texas in the house.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a new addition to MD Fame. Safiyya, tell me. Sorry, Dr. Quintiliani.
I have a 14-month-old son. We just moved to Palm Springs in California. Previously, we're in New York and New Jersey. And I'm a pulmonary critical care physician. And yeah.
All right. And where's that beautiful accent from?
I'm originally from England, but I've lived in the States for the last 10 years.
Okay. I love it. I'm sorry. I'm sure to you we have an accent, but I really like it. Let's put it that way. All right. So I was doing my own research, and based on different psychologists, they have different parenting styles that they have come across. So there's different groups that are bracketed in. I mean, the one that I grew up knowing is the authoritarian, which is like the parents believe, hey, the kids should be seen but not heard kind of thing. And it's their way or the highway kind of thing. And then with the whole authoritative is kind of a pullback from the authoritarian. It's like just be more creative, maintaining a positive relationship and seeing the consequences for their action. And then there is the permissive, which is like basically let nature take its course. So the kids will be kids, and then if something happens, then the consequences of that, basically. And then there's uninvolved, which we know that can take on different aspects of that. So, I mean, if we want to go through, I did not tell you about my life, actually. I just jumped in. So I'm Candace Wall-Bennett, and I live with my husband in Pittsburgh, PA. I have a 4-year-old son and a 5-month-old daughter. And I'm a family medicine physician, and I'm practicing with urgent care. And that's a little bit about me. So, I mean, if we can just, I guess, tell our overall approach to parenting, I can go first. As I said before, I grew up in a whole authoritarian home where it's really them. It's really the parents' way, or you learn the parents' way, and then not really have a mind. I don't feel like I grew up with a mind of my own. I feel like I evolved over the years to develop it. But as growing up, it's the parents' way kind of thing. So I recognized that when I first had my child, and I feel like I initially started out being very permissive, I must say, because I guess I wanted to rebel against that whole authoritarian approach. And then that didn't work out too well, especially as he hit toddler years, let's put it that way. So I had to quickly draw back, try to draw in the reins kind of thing. But I must say, the struggle of the balance between the two, I'm still fighting. I don't know if you guys can say for yourself how you approach it, but I find myself fighting between the balance of trying to hold on to being authoritative. Okay, these are the consequences, versus remembering my childhood and being like, okay.
So Candace, can I ask, do you have siblings?
Yeah, I have an older brother. I lived with him part of my years, but I feel like I was really raised as a only child, to be honest.
Okay, so I feel like that might have a big difference. So I am the youngest of three. Brother and sister are 7 and 5 years older than me, right? So I think by the time I came around, my parents were like, all right, like more chill, I guess I would put it. They were very strict with my brother. Firstborn son, super strict, huge expectations, all that stuff like that, right? My sister, kind of a little bit more lenient. Me, I feel like what I said went, right? I was like the spoiled little sister that, everybody catered to. Basically, I felt like if I wanted something, I got it, right? So I was used to that, like I was used to me asking for something, and, I was a daddy's girl, but I also had a really good relationship with my mom, so with my dad and my brother, I'd be like a tomboy. With my mom and my sister, I'd be a little bit more girly. But I feel like when I came around, because I was so much younger than them, my parents were way more chill than they were with my brother and sister. I could see a big difference with how strict they were with them versus me. So I feel like it was very like relaxed. So I guess my approach,
I got you.
Like, as you can hear,
so how's your approach now, right?
Yeah, like my child is screaming and trying to come into the office. And I think it's a mix, right? So I don't want to be a helicopter parent because I want them to learn, but I also won't put them in a dangerous situation where they'll hurt themselves, right? But I'm more like kind of learn as you go, but keep some boundaries, but not be so like strict about things. Like, I don't want them to fear me, but I also don't want them to think I'm their best friend. I kind of want that middle type of ground. And that's hard to do, I feel like, because sometimes then they'll just like think you're joking. Or sometimes they'll be like slamming doors and be like, you're so mean, So it's like a very fine balance. And I guess I pick and choose when I feel like if it's an important thing, like something that could harm them or they're learning a lesson, like don't bully, don't push, don't hit, that kind of stuff, I'll be super strict on, right? Because it's like, this is going to carry them throughout their life. But if they're like, I want another piece of candy, and I'm like, you've had your limit, sometimes I'll be more lenient just to kind of get them off my back type of situation where maybe I should be a little bit more strict. But I do try to teach them moderation too. So I feel like I'm trying to figure out that fine balance, but I don't think I've perfected it by any means.
Totally understand. What do you think about your partner? Do you think your partner?
So I think it's really great, the setup that we have. So I work out of the house, and my husband used to work out of the house when we lived in Chicago. So we were both working parents out of the house. We had a live-in nanny. When we moved here, the nanny stayed for a year because it was like pandemic, but my husband was working from home then. So there was a lot more hands-on from him, where before it was more like we needed really my mom and the nanny to help out with a lot of things for the kids. He has really stepped up.
I'm kind of, I guess, referring to, do you think he's more authoritarian?
Oh, got you. Permissive? Okay, because I was going to say like roles, because you know how we have these gender roles too. So, but he is way more authoritarian, more helicopter, more cautious, more like don't even let them even like get close to getting hurt type of thing. Like very, very like too much for me, to be honest with you. Like sometimes I need to be like, dude, chill.
I got you. Yeah. And then Safiyya, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in a very similar way to you, with very authoritarian parents, where it was like, what we say goes. No, you can't go over for a sleepover. Why? Because I said so, and you just had to kind of go with it. And I think in some ways I felt like growing up, I was like, okay, it's good to have tough love, like I've grown up and I've been very resilient and I've done these things, and I can handle it and things like that, I definitely have a slightly different personality where I can take a lot, so I thought like that's sort of the way that I was going to be as a parent, even though looking back when I was a kid, I was pretty miserable by that kind of parenting, and then weirdly enough, towards the end of fellowship, I guess, I think, and now when I think about it, it's probably coinciding with me having my kid, I realize that authoritarian style of parenting sometimes comes out in medicine as well, because you're a role model, or you have to teach people, or you're the leader of the group. And so that parenting style comes out in a way, like I'm going to be hard on the residents, not because I'm a meanie, but because I want them to be really good at this, and that sometimes makes people miserable, right? So when my son was born, I was not going to be that sort of parent. And so far I'm trying to practice this, explaining things to him. But then I started noticing these slight like toddler things coming out in him already. He's only 14 months, like the tantrums that, like today we're at the restaurant and he's like, I want that. And I'm like, no, and I sort of said, oh, this is very different from like what I'm reading from the gentle parenting books, but how am I going to control this little boy who's like screaming at the restaurant and like pulling my hair, and I know he's not a bad kid. He's a toddler. But so you're talking about the balance thing is interesting because it's something that I'm thinking about now, So, yeah.
I must say when we talk about intentional parenting, it's really hard. Like, as you said, your initial like approach, like right consciousness, like your initial approach is like snap, right? But then you have to think, you're like, okay, wait, step back. It's really hard. They'll call it the whole intentional. I'm telling you, like I literally some days I feel more exhausted at home than at work. I'm like, because I'm like, as you said, like constantly try to find the balance kind of thing. So how do you think your partner is? Do you think he's more
he was like how he was a little bit, before we had kids, was a little bit shocked at some of the things I would say sometimes. He'd be like, oh, you're going to be the disciplinarian, and he didn't really like it at all, and he was more gentle and things like that. And I think we had conversations when we had kids about, whether we were going to spank our kids, and that we agreed on that we weren't going to do that. Like I got spanked as a kid. It made me absolutely miserable. But he's definitely more gentler, and permissive, I guess, in some ways. Yeah.
I totally understand. So, I feel like we all hit on it. Like, do we believe it's better to give a little ground and protect the peace, or like stand firm and like challenge? What do you guys think about that?
You want to go first,
Lubna?
So say it again, Candace.
So on the whole parenting style, I guess to get a better feedback of how you parent, would you say throughout your day, is it better to stand your ground a little, or to protect the peace to give a little ground? Let's put it that way. Or should we stand firm and challenge?
I guess it depends on what it is, right? So it's like, if it's bedtime, I stand my ground, right? No, there's a certain time we turn off the tablets, we take a bath, we brush our teeth, we go to bed. You know what I'm saying? So that I'll stand my ground because I need consistency in that. Otherwise, the next morning is miserable getting everybody ready. So that's something I'm like very strict on. Like, I'm like, get up, stop it, turn it off. I'm a little bit more authoritative on that. But then I feel like when it's like, it was summertime, right? And the kids are staying up till 9, 10 o'clock. And that would never happen. People were like surprised, like, oh my God, your kids are up. And I'm like, you know what? I almost had that guilt. Like, I'm waking them up to go to daycare every morning, and it's their summer break. And so I kind of have that guilt where I'm like, okay, let me be a little more lenient. You know, they're just going to summer classes, they're going on field trips, there's not anything to learn. So yeah, I would let them stay up and stuff like that. So it's like, I guess it depends on the situation when I like need to be firm, but like during the school year, bedtime is very firm. That's
So I guess you're thinking that the boundaries. So I guess you developed different boundaries of when, okay, bedtime is firm. I think, well, for me, I think that works. I mean, especially as you said, bedtime. You gotta be very firm on bedtime, or it's like playtime.
yeah.
Like, funny enough, I have written instructions for my child. Like, I actually write them down. It's like, bedtime is not playtime. And then sometimes he like asks, okay, where's the instructions again? I was like, really? We're going over this again.
That's so funny. I could do that.
But I must say, during the day, it's so easy to let the piece, like, okay, fine, you can have the iPad.
Yeah.
Let me just take a breather. So I guess it's a whole, well, for some things we need to like stand firm versus, I guess, throughout the day. So what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, again, like he's just entering into the beginning of that toddler phase, so I haven't had to deal with it too much. But I've already noticed, I mean, I guess for us parents, like bedtime is when you have time together. So that is a non-negotiable, but we definitely do give in at times, you know. I mean, I, in my mind, had all these things that I really didn't want him to do, like no TV, you know, and like sometimes we let him watch a thing and then he wants to watch it and I let it go for a little bit longer. I'm like, oh, it's okay, you know, but yeah, I think probably a mixture. I can't imagine like just being lenient all the time, because you can already see, I mean, even when he was like 10, 11 months old, you could always tell that you could already tell that he would like test boundaries a little bit, you know, like if I make this sound, then so yeah.
That's so interesting. I guess that's the whole part of them maturing, is like to test the boundaries and see how much I can get away with.
Yeah.
And I think that's when you've finally developed your parenting style, is when that whole testing period starts. Oh, that's it's a rough one, I must say. I must say with the second child, I think it's going to be a lot easier for me with that whole testing stage begin. Because I guess by then you'll already develop your parenting style kind of thing. So I guess I can go to, like, what do you think about the whole respect? Like, do you think like if you show your child respect, like should we show them respect and you think they'll just show them respect first and then they'll show you back? Or do you think it should automatically, I guess, they should always show you respect? What do you guys think about that?
You know, like they're learning it in school. I think because we're in Texas, it's very yes, sir, yes, ma'am. So I was almost surprised.
Oh, that's interesting.
So I was actually almost surprised when sometimes I get authoritative and they'll say yes, ma'am. And they'll say to my husband, yes, sir. So it's like, it's almost like when your tone changes, they understand it. And I feel like maybe Texan schools are very strict on this because it's a big thing, like for them to say, yes, ma'am, yes, sir. They don't, it's a big thing on respect. So I feel like I don't even have to teach them that because they're already learning it at school. So I almost was surprised when they started doing
that's really interesting.
So
no, it's not like that here. It's like a first name basis for the teacher here.
Yeah, and then also like in our culture, like our friends, like our you know, their friends' parents and stuff like that, they'll say miss whatever, or sometimes even auntie and uncle and stuff like that, even if they're just our close friends. So that they've been doing for a long time, but even like our neighbors, they'll be like Miss whatever or Mr. whatever, you know, but I think this is also coming reiterated and reinforced at school too. So it's pretty easy almost.
From my perspective with regards to that question, I think about it a lot because I think when the authoritarian style of parenting that a lot of us were brought up with, it shows very little respect for the child. You don't feel very seen. You feel like it actually makes you act out sometimes as well, because you have no other ways to communicate. You know, when you look at your child and you see them as their own being, as a person, that may be acting a certain way because maybe they're going through something. Maybe they're just a child whose brain hasn't developed and they don't know how to respond to things. They don't know how to deal with these emotions. And you try and deal with them and parent them with that mind, which is a respect for them as their individual person. It actually allows things to be a little bit easier. You know, imagine if you look at your toddler and you say, they're acting this way just because they're difficult. But if you try and see them in a certain way and you respect them and you understand it, and I'm not saying that's how toddlers always, there's always some big thing behind it. But I think it allows you to deal with them in a way that's a lot easier. Oh, you're not just being a difficult person, you know? And I think that that relationship with your kid will translate until they're much older. You know, it will allow them to be better people. It will allow them to respect other people. And it will, you guys will have a much better relationship when they're older, you know? I hated that thing of when I was a child, of like feeling like I'm not really being seen and I'm not really being heard. I would just sort of do this, do that, do that. So I think that aspect of it is, I think it's the basis of any kind of good parenting, whichever style you end up taking, you know, whether you're going to be a little bit more strict or a little bit more permissive, but really understanding who's in front of you in a way.
I totally agree with you from that. I mean, personally, I came from a Caribbean home, and it was always you see but not heard kind of thing. So I did feel that, and you can go back and see that, like, from the first year. I mean, even before your child at the stage he's at right now, the first year they can sense whether how your parenting style would be, like how much respect do you show them. And I mean, researchers show that no actually stunts the brain. So it's kind of interesting that you brought up that it's good to show them respect. And I mean, especially a male child, I must say, you have to show them respect, because they are going to stomp and scream until you actually see them. I must say if you want it to be easier, especially for a male child, you have to find that balance where you have to show him respect, because I feel like it's ingrained. Actually, research has shown, like in male especially, it's like ingrained in them, the whole respect factor. So from they're very young. So I mean, if you don't show it, then it's going to show out in your child. That's what I've seen. So I guess going back with a different kind of I guess spare the whole saying about spare the rod and spoil the child. I mean, I'm trying to get the view of the difference between, say, punishment versus discipline. I mean, I didn't even know there was a difference, to be honest with you. I'm not sure if you guys knew that there's a difference between punishment and discipline. So punishment is basically given, basically, I guess, a harsh treatment for what has happened versus, say, it basically between positive and negative reinforcement. It's saying, yes, okay, because you did this, you're going to get a negative response. That's more punishment. While discipline is, there's a consequences for what you did. So it can be positive reinforcement or negative reinforcement kind of thing. And I just want to get your viewpoints on how you go about that. You want to go, Lumna?
Yeah, sure. I don't know. When I hear punishment, I think of being like more cruel to the child, you know, like you're taking it out on them, versus discipline is more like, okay, well, if I don't teach him how to do this right, like I don't want him to turn out to be like this type of like person when they're older, right? So it's more like guiding them, but also showing that what they did wasn't okay and that a consequence happens, right? Like, okay, 1 hour of screen time is taken away. So that's like discipline. Like, this is what happened. This is why it was wrong. And this is the consequence of it. Where punishment, I feel like it's more like the child wouldn't even understand, because you're almost like, you know, there's there's hitting, there's like putting them in a chair on timeout and like making them face the wall. You know, back in school, like they used to, you know, I just read an article actually one of the schools is bringing back
Oh, corporal punishment. Did you
yes,
see that?
yes, and parents are
Yes, I saw
signing
that
up
in
for that.
Missouri, actually.
And
In
parents are
Missouri,
signing up
I
their
saw
children for
that.
this. So they're
I saw
bringing
that.
back that old school
Yes,
thing,
I
and
did see
parents
that.
are like actively wanting their children to be in that. Um, so, um, so I feel like that type of that's just like you're just being cruel to the child and they're not learning actually anything from it. Versus if you discipline, it's almost like you need to get at their level, explain to them what was wrong or what was right, and then either like, like you said, positive or negative reinforcement. So this is the consequence of this type of behavior. Next time, let's make better choices, versus punishment. I feel like it's a very negative connotation, and there's like the just child just gets upset and angry and almost like creates this behavior of anger, and like maybe he'll take that out and lash it out on a child smaller than him. That's how I feel like punishment is versus discipline. So I feel like I'm more of the discipline person when it comes to something important, but I don't feel like I want to punish them. Like I'm so frustrated, and it's almost, I think punishment happens when the parent is so frustrated, right? It's
Exactly.
like
It's yeah.
they get so upset and they can't even, communicate at that point. So they spank, or they get their
Exactly.
belt out, or they throw you in the corner and say, sit there for 15 minutes, because it's almost like, like when you see babies, and I always tell moms of newborns, you know what? You're a human being. You're going to get frustrated. You're going to get angry. You're going to get upset. You're going to be tired. You're going to want to cry and scream. Just put the baby in a safe place and walk away from the room. That kid is going to be fine. Close the door, walk away for 5 minutes, because you don't want that punishment consequence to be taken out on the child. And we've all been there. I mean, even in residency, I feel like I wasn't ever as exhausted as taking care of a child 24/7 when they're like sleeping and colic and all this stuff. It's just like something else changes in you where you need to just be like, hold on a second, and just walk away from the situation, and I feel like lots of people don't know how to walk away from the situation, and then that punishment goes on the child.
I think that is the damaging thing, really, when it comes to punishment, when you are using your anger and you're extending it onto the child. And really, in that moment, you're unable to control your own emotions, and and you're taking it out on them. It's like, who's the bad person in that situation? It's you.
Yeah.
And then